The ancient warning systems had been silent for 10,000 years. Deep in the heart of the Galactic Council's most secure facility on Nexus Prime, the Sentinel arrays suddenly erupted with blinding light and deafening alarms. Senior Monitor Kethaval of the Crystalline Collective dropped his datapad as the screens around him filled with impossible readings. "By the eternal stars," he whispered, his crystal body resonating with fear. The energy signatures were beyond anything in their databases. Something vast and hungry was stirring in the galactic core. Within hours, emergency sessions were called across all 12 council worlds. The holographic chamber on Nexus Prime filled with the representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Each species had evolved beyond the primitive violence that plagued lesser worlds. They had achieved harmony through logic, progress through cooperation, and peace through understanding. Ambassador Zethkar of the Ethereal Collective floated in his containment field, his gaseous form shimmering with concern. "The readings are confirmed across all monitoring stations," he announced to the gathered delegates. "The Void Devourers have awakened." A collective shudder passed through the chamber. Even the proud synthetic unity, beings of pure artificial intelligence housed in sleek mechanical bodies, seemed to process this information with something approaching dread. The Void Devourers were more than ancient history. They were the galaxy's oldest nightmare. "Impossible," declared General Thexmore of the warrior caste hegemony, his forearms crossing over his armored chest. Even among the peaceful council races, the hegemony maintained some martial traditions, though they had not fought a real war in millennia. The Devourers were sealed away by the precursors. They cannot simply wake up. High Scientist Dr. Veltara of the Academic Consortium accessed her portable data core, her elongated skull pulsing with bioluminescent patterns as she processed vast amounts of information. "The containment fields show massive degradation," she reported. "After millions of years, the precursor technology is finally failing. Our calculations suggest we have approximately 6 standard months before the first entities reach inhabited space." The chamber erupted in controlled panic. Even the most disciplined beings in the galaxy struggled to maintain their composure when faced with extinction. The Void Devourers were not merely predators, they were cosmic horrors that consumed entire star systems, feeding on stellar energy and leaving nothing but empty space in their wake. "What are our defensive capabilities?" asked Prime Minister Yolent of the Trade Federation, his tentacles writhing nervously around his hoverchair. Dr. Veltara's bio-lights dimmed. "Minimal. Our fleets are designed for exploration and peacekeeping, not warfare against entities of this magnitude. The Devourers exist partially outside normal space-time. Conventional weapons are useless against them." "Then we evacuate," suggested Ambassador Ythara of the Pacifist Alliance, her melodic voice carrying across the chamber. "We abandon the outer systems and consolidate our populations in the core worlds." "And then what?" General Thexmore demanded. "The Devourers will simply follow us. They consume everything in their path. There is nowhere to run." For 3 days, the greatest minds in the galaxy worked frantically. They analyzed ancient precursor texts, ran countless simulations, and designed weapon systems that pushed their technology to its limits. Nothing worked. Every scenario ended the same way: total extinction within 2 years. Meanwhile, in a small yellow star system on the outer rim, the third planet continued its lazy rotation, blissfully unaware of the cosmic threat bearing down on it. Earth had been discovered by Council scouts decades ago, but the reports had been filed away and forgotten. The planet was inhabited by a species that called themselves humans, but the Council had deemed them too primitive and violent for contact. The human species exhibited every trait the Council had evolved beyond. They waged constant wars, showed shocking disregard for their own safety, and seemed to actually enjoy conflict. Their entertainment glorified violence. Their history was written in blood, and their first impulse when meeting something new was to figure out how to kill it. They were everything the galaxy had worked to move past. But as the 4th day of emergency sessions began, and another outer rim system went dark, consumed by the advancing Void Devourers, Ambassador Zethkar made a suggestion that horrified the assembly. "There is one species we haven't considered," he said quietly. "They exist on a planet called Earth. They are primitive, violent, everything we have evolved beyond." "Absolutely not," Dr. Veltara responded immediately. "They are barely spacefaring. What could such savages possibly offer that our advanced civilizations cannot provide? Ambassador Zethkar's gaseous form flickered with uncertainty. Perhaps that is exactly the point. We have spent millennia perfecting ourselves, removing every trace of aggression and violence from our nature. But the Void Devourers are creatures of pure destruction. To fight monsters, perhaps we need monsters of our own. The chamber fell silent. The suggestion was unthinkable. The council represented the pinnacle of galactic evolution, beings of pure intellect, perfect cooperation, and absolute peace. To ask for help from violent primitives would be an admission that their advanced civilization was fundamentally flawed. But as another monitoring station reported the loss of an entire star cluster, pride began to war with survival. The Void Devourers were now consuming inhabited systems. Billions of sentient beings were dying every hour, their life force absorbed into the endless hunger of cosmic nightmares. High scientist Dr. Veltara ran the calculations one more time. Every model showed the same result. Within 6 months, the galaxy would be empty of all life, consumed by entities that viewed entire civilizations as nothing more than appetizers. How do we even contact them? Asked Prime Minister Jolent. We have never established diplomatic relations with this Earth. Carefully, Ambassador Zethkar replied. Very carefully. If the reports are accurate, these humans are capable of extreme violence. We must approach them as we would approach any other dangerous predator. The irony was not lost on anyone in the chamber. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were about to go begging to the very primitives they had scorned. They would have to set aside millions of years of evolution and cultural superiority to ask for help from beings they considered barely above animals. But as the fifth outer rim system went dark, consumed by entities that existed beyond their comprehension, the Council faced a truth that their advanced minds could no longer deny. Sometimes survival required embracing the very darkness they had spent eons trying to eliminate. The vote was close, but desperation won over pride. A small diplomatic vessel would be dispatched to Earth immediately. They would broadcast a simple message to these violent humans. We need your help. None of them could have imagined what would happen when Earth's beasts finally answered their call. The diplomatic vessel. Harmony's Grace dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, with all the enthusiasm of a prisoner approaching execution. Captain Velthara of the Academic Consortium stared at the primitive yellow star. Through the viewport, her bioluminescent patterns dimmed with reluctance. This feels wrong, she muttered to her first officer, a synthetic unity construct designated Observer 7. We are the pinnacle of galactic evolution. We have transcended violence, achieved perfect harmony, mastered the fundamental forces of the universe, and now we're begging primitives for help. Observer 7's optical sensors whirred as they processed the sensor data streaming in from their destination. The human homeworld shows extensive electromagnetic pollution, weapons testing residue, and signs of active military conflicts. These beings appear to be in a constant state of warfare. Wonderful, Captain Velthara sighed. Exactly the kind of savages we need to humble ourselves before. The bridge crew worked in uncomfortable silence as they approached Earth. The planet was smaller than most council worlds, with a single natural satellite and a chaotic mixture of land and water. Primitive satellites cluttered its orbital space, many of them clearly military in nature. Captain, reported Communications Officer Kethsal, his crystal body resonating with confusion. We're receiving multiple signals from the planet's surface. Different languages, different governments, different military organizations. They don't appear to have a unified planetary authority. Of course they don't, Captain Velthara said with growing dismay. They're too primitive to have evolved past tribal thinking. How are we supposed to negotiate with an entire species when they can't even negotiate with themselves? Observer 7 analyzed the intercepted communications with mechanical precision. Preliminary linguistic analysis suggests active conflicts on multiple continents. Current data indicates at least 47 separate nation-states, many with hostile relationships. Violence appears to be their primary method of dispute resolution. 3 days earlier, the Outer Rim monitoring station at Kepler 442 had gone silent. The Void Devourers had consumed another star system, adding its energy to their terrible hunger. Time was running out for the galaxy, and here they were, approaching a world where the inhabitants were too busy fighting each other to even notice the cosmic threat approaching. "Open a general communication channel," Captain Velthara ordered with resignation. "Broadcast on all frequencies they use. Maybe one of their tribal leaders will be intelligent enough to understand what we're offering." The message went out across Earth's communication networks in dozens of languages, translated by the ship's advanced AI systems. It was simple, direct, and painful for the proud captain to transmit. "People of Earth, this is the Galactic Council. We represent 12 advanced civilizations from across the galaxy. We face an existential threat that our technology cannot defeat. We request your assistance." The response was immediate and chaotic. Every military installation on the planet suddenly activated. Fighter aircraft scrambled. Defense systems came online. Within minutes, Earth's entire military apparatus was pointing weapons at their ship. "They're treating us as a threat," Observer 7 reported. "Multiple weapon systems are targeting our vessel. These beings' first instinct is violence." "Of course it is," Captain Velthara said grimly. "That's exactly why we're here." Then something unexpected happened. Among the threatening military communications, a single voice cut through the chaos. It was calm, professional, and spoke in the language they had identified as English. "Galactic Council vessel, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We acknowledge your request for assistance. Stand down from Earth orbit and prepare to receive our delegation." Captain Velthara blinked in surprise. "United Earth Defense Force? Our sensors detected no unified planetary government." "There wasn't one until about 30 minutes ago." Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the communication system. "Funny how quickly humans can cooperate when aliens show up asking for help with cosmic monsters." Within hours, something remarkable happened on Earth. The same species that had been fighting each other for millennia suddenly stopped. Every conflict, every border dispute, every territorial argument was put on hold. The humans had a new priority. Representatives from every major nation gathered in a facility called NORAD, deep inside a mountain. The Galactic Council's diplomatic team was invited to land at a military base in a place called Colorado. As their Rakal shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, Captain Velthara noted the massive military installations scattered across the planet's surface. "Look at all those weapons," she whispered. "They've turned their entire world into an armed camp." The meeting took place in a sterile conference room filled with humans in military uniforms. Admiral Chen was a small woman with dark eyes that seemed to calculate the distance to every exit. Around her sat generals, scientists, and politicians from across the planet. None of them looked particularly peaceful. "So," Admiral Chen said without preamble, "space monsters are eating the galaxy, and you need our help because your advanced civilizations are too evolved to fight back. Is that about right?" Captain Velthara struggled to maintain her dignity. "The Void Devourers are entities that exist partially outside normal space-time. They consume stellar energy and cannot be reasoned with or deterred. Our technology, designed for exploration and peaceful cooperation, has proven ineffective." "Show us," demanded General Rodriguez from the United States military. "We want to see these things for ourselves." The holographic display activated, showing the Galactic Council's data on the Void Devourers. The humans watched in silence as the recording showed a creature the size of a moon phase partially into normal space. Its impossible geometry defying visual comprehension. They watched as it approached a star and began feeding, draining the stellar core until the system died. "How fast are they moving?" asked General Petrov from the Russian Federation. "They will reach inhabited council worlds within 4 months, Observer 7 reported. 4 months, Admiral Chen repeated thoughtfully. "And you came to us because we're violent primitives." Captain Velthara winced. "Your species has traits that our civilizations have evolved beyond. Aggression, tactical thinking, willingness to accept casualties. These may be necessary to combat entities that exist beyond normal strategic paradigms." Something changed in the room. The humans began looking at each other with expressions Captain Velthara couldn't quite interpret. It wasn't fear or confusion. It was something else entirely. "Admiral," General Kim from South Korea spoke quietly. "Remember what we discussed about the Fermi paradox? About why we never found any other intelligent life?" Admiral Chen nodded slowly. We always assumed we were alone because space was too big, or civilizations destroyed themselves. She looked directly at Captain Velthara. But what if we were alone because everything else in the galaxy was too civilized to survive? The room fell silent. Then Admiral Chen stood up, and every human in the room stood with her. Captain Velthara, she said formally, humanity accepts your request for assistance. We'll help you fight your cosmic monsters. But understand something. We're not doing this as your subordinates. We're doing this as your partners, and partners share information. What do you mean? Captain Velthara asked. Admiral Chen smiled, and for the first time since arriving at Earth, Captain Velthara felt genuinely afraid. It wasn't a peaceful smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just spotted prey. We mean you're going to show us everything, every bit of technology, every tactical analysis, every piece of data you have on these void devourers. Because, if you want Earth's beast to save your galaxy, you're going to have to let us do it our way. Captain Velthara realized with growing horror that humanity hadn't just agreed to help. They had agreed to take charge. The galaxy's most violent species was about to be unleashed on an enemy that had defeated the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. For the first time since the crisis began, Captain Velthara wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. 3 weeks after first contact, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Council via quantum communication link. Behind her, through the transparent walls of the orbital facility, humanity had somehow constructed in record time. Dozens of massive ships hung in space like sleeping predators. Honored representatives, she began, her voice carrying across light years to the council chambers on Nexus Prime. Humanity has reviewed your data on the void devourers. We have some concerns about your previous strategies. Ambassador Zethkar's gaseous form flickered with impatience. Admiral Chen, we appreciate your willingness to assist, but these entities have defied our understanding for millions of years. Perhaps it would be better if you followed our established protocols. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made every council member suddenly uncomfortable. Ambassador, your protocols resulted in the complete destruction of 17 star systems in the past month. With respect, we'll be doing things differently. High Scientist Dr. Velthara activated her bioluminescent patterns in confusion. Different how? These beings exist partially outside normal spacetime. Conventional weapons are useless. Energy shields provide no protection. What could your primitive technology possibly offer that our advanced science cannot? Fear, Admiral Chen said simply. The silence that followed stretched across the quantum link like a void. Finally, General Thexamore of the warrior caste hegemony leaned forward. Even among the peaceful council races, his people maintained some martial traditions. Fear? He repeated. Admiral, these entities are cosmic horrors. They do not experience emotion as we understand it. Everything experiences fear, General, Admiral Chen replied. Fear is the universe's way of telling you that something wants to kill you. The question is whether you're smart enough to listen. She gestured to something off-screen, and a human technician handed her a datapad. We've been studying your recordings for 3 weeks. Every species in this council evolved past violence. You eliminated aggression, transcended conflict, achieved perfect harmony. It's very impressive. Her tone suggested it was anything but. But there's one thing none of you considered. Which is? Dr. Velthara asked. Violence isn't a bug in evolution. It's a feature. Admiral Chen's voice hardened. Every predator in the universe knows one thing. Sometimes the prey fights back. And when it does, you'd better be ready for a war. She activated her own holographic display, and the council members found themselves looking at something that made their advanced minds struggle to process what they were seeing. It was a ship, but not like anything in their databases. Where council vessels were elegant, curved, designed for beauty and efficiency, this thing was angular, aggressive, covered in weapon systems that seemed to have been bolted on wherever space allowed. This is the UES Retribution, Admiral Chen announced, one of 47 vessels we've completed in the past 3 weeks. Each one is designed for a single purpose, to hurt things that try to hurt us. Observer 7's optical sensors whirred frantically. Admiral, the energy signatures we're detecting are impossible. How did you construct these vessels so quickly? We didn't sleep, Admiral Chen said matter-of-factly. Humans can stay awake for weeks when motivated. We've had 3 billion people working around the clock. Every factory, every shipyard, every manufacturing facility on the planet has been converted to war production. We're very good at war production. Captain Velthara spoke from her diplomatic vessel still orbiting Earth. Admiral, these ships appear to be armed with weapons we don't recognize. Our sensors are detecting energy patterns that shouldn't be possible with your technological level. That's because they're not our weapons. Admiral Chen smiled again, and the expression sent chills through every council member watching. They're yours. We reverse-engineered everything from your ship's database while you were negotiating with our diplomats. Then we improved them. Improved them how? Dr. Veltara demanded. We made them nastier. Admiral Chen's image flickered as she moved closer to the camera. You designed your weapons to be clean, efficient, humane. We redesigned them to cause maximum psychological trauma. Your energy beams kill cleanly. Ours cause pain first. Your missiles destroy targets. Ours make examples. Ambassador Zethkar's form shimmered with horror. Admiral, such weapons would be considered war crimes by galactic law. Good thing we're not part of your galaxy then, Admiral Chen replied. Now let me tell you how we're going to save your civilizations. The holographic display changed, showing tactical formations that made every military mind in the council recoil. Human ships arranged in patterns designed not for efficiency, but for maximum intimidation, weapon systems that seemed to prioritize terror over simple destruction. Step 1, Admiral Chen announced. We're going to make the Void Devourers afraid. Every living thing in the universe has 2 basic drives. Find food and avoid becoming food. You've been treating these entities like natural disasters. We're going to treat them like what they actually are, predators. And how exactly do you propose to frighten cosmic horrors? General Thexmore asked skeptically. By showing them something more horrible, Admiral Chen replied. Us. She gestured again, and the display showed something that made several council members disconnect from the transmission entirely. It was a recording from one of Earth's military training facilities. Humans in combat armor were practicing something they called boarding actions, fighting inside enemy vessels in close quarters. You can't be serious, Dr. Veltara whispered. You're planning to board these entities? Damn right we are, Admiral Chen confirmed. Every predator has weak points. Internal organs, nervous systems, command and control centers. The Void Devourers might exist partially outside space-time, but they still need to maintain coherent structures to function. We're going to get inside those structures and break things. The remaining council members watched in growing horror as the display showed human soldiers training with weapons designed for close quarters, combat against entities that defied physical laws, weapons that fired exotic matter, armor that incorporated technology that shouldn't have been possible. And most disturbing of all, the humans were volunteers. They were eager to fight cosmic horrors in hand-to-hand combat. This is madness, Captain Velthara transmitted from her ship. These entities are beyond physical confrontation. They exist in dimensions we can barely comprehend. Maybe, Admiral Chen acknowledged, but they still need to eat. And when something tries to eat you, you have 2 choices. Run or bite back. You've been running for millions of years. We're going to bite. The transmission shifted again, this time showing Earth's orbital space. The council representatives found themselves looking at a fleet unlike anything they had ever imagined. Hundreds of ships, each one a flying weapons platform, and moving between them, thousands of smaller craft carrying what the humans called boarding pods. Admiral, Ambassador Zethkar's voice was strained. Surely you understand the risks. If your strategy fails, you'll have doomed not just your own species but the entire galaxy. Admiral Chen's expression grew cold. Ambassador, the galaxy is already doomed. You came to us because your advanced civilizations couldn't save themselves. Now you're complaining about our methods? She leaned forward and her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You want to know what the difference is between humans and the rest of the galaxy? When something threatens our existence, we don't evolve beyond violence. We evolve better violence. The transmission ended, leaving the council chambers in stunned silence. Outside, another monitoring station reported the loss of yet another star system to the advancing Void Devourers. Time was running out, and the galaxy's fate now rested in the hands of the very primitives they had scorned. But as the reports continued to come in, something unprecedented began to happen. For the first time since the crisis began, The Void Devourers encountered something unexpected. Resistance. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when an unstoppable force met the one thing it had never encountered before, something that refused to be stopped. The Maelstrom sector had once been home to 47 inhabited worlds and 2 billion sentient beings. Now it was a graveyard of dead stars and empty space, consumed by the largest void devourer yet encountered. The entity stretched across 3 light years, its impossible geometry folding in and out of normal spacetime as it fed on the remains of entire solar systems. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching her tactical display as the combined human-alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the sector's edge. 230 vessels in total, 47 human warships and the remainder representing every military asset the Galactic Council could muster. "First time seeing one of these things in person," muttered Captain Marcus Rodriguez from his position at the tactical station. "Sensors are going crazy trying to track something that exists in 12 dimensions at once." "Good," Admiral Chen replied. "Confused sensors mean confused targeting systems. That works both ways." She activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today we find out if cosmic horrors bleed." On the crystalline collective flagship Harmony's Wisdom, Captain Velthara watched the human vessels with growing unease. Their formation made no sense according to any tactical doctrine she understood. Instead of maintaining safe distances and coordinated firing patterns, the human ships were arranged in what appeared to be deliberately provocative positions. "Admiral Chen," she transmitted, "your vessels are in range of the entity's feeding tendrils. According to our calculations, you should maintain a minimum distance of 50,000 kilometers. Admiral Chen's response was immediate and chilling. "Captain, we're not here to maintain safe distances. We're here to get close enough to hurt the damn thing." The Void Devourer noticed them. The entity's massive form shifted, portions of it phasing into normal space as tentacles of living darkness reached toward the approaching fleet. Each tendril was larger than most Council starships, crackling with energy that could drain the life from entire planets. The alien vessels immediately began evasive maneuvers, their elegant hulls dancing away from the grasping appendages with graceful precision. Their weapons fired in coordinated volleys, energy beams and quantum torpedoes that had been refined over millennia of peaceful exploration. The attacks struck the Void Devourer and vanished, absorbed into its impossible structure without causing any visible damage. "All Council vessels, fall back to minimum safe distance," Captain Velthara ordered. "Maintain defensive formation and continue bombardment." But the human ships did something different. Instead of retreating, they accelerated directly toward the entity. "All vessels, weapons free," Admiral Chen announced calmly. "Target the feeding nodes. Let's see if we can give this thing indigestion." The human weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen in combat. Where Council technology was designed for clean, efficient destruction, human weapons were built to cause suffering. Energy beams that didn't just kill but tortured their targets first. Missiles that created cascading failures in enemy systems. Viral nanobots that turned a ship's own systems against it. But the Void Devourer was not a ship. It was something far worse. The entity's tendrils lashed out at the approaching human vessels, moving with impossible speed through folded space. 3 ships were caught in the first strike, the UES Savage, the UES Predator, and the UES Fury. They vanished into the entity's mass, their crews screaming as they were consumed by living darkness. "Admiral," Captain Rodriguez shouted, "we're losing ships. The entity's feeding rate is increasing." "Good," Admiral Chen replied, and every alien observer listening to the communication channel felt a chill of horror. "That means it's paying attention to us instead of eating star systems." On the bridge of the UES Fury, Captain Lisa Wong felt her ship being pulled into the entity's mass. The hull groaned as impossible forces tore at the vessel's structure. But instead of despair, she felt only cold determination. "All hands, prepare for close assault," she announced to her crew. "We're going inside this thing, and we're taking as much of it with us as we can." The human boarding pods launched from the dying ship, carrying assault teams directly into the Void Devourer's body. Each pod was equipped with weapons that violated several laws of physics, devices that created localized reality distortions, bombs that infected interdimensional space with viral equations, and soldiers carrying weapons designed to kill things that shouldn't be able to die. Fury Team is inside the entity, Captain Wong reported as her ship was consumed, beginning internal assault. The inside of this thing is indescribable, but it bleeds when you cut it right. What happened next changed everything. The Void Devourer, an entity that had consumed civilizations for millions of years, without ever encountering real resistance, experienced something it had never felt before: pain. The human assault teams weren't just attacking its physical structure, they were attacking its very essence, using weapons that turned its own interdimensional nature against it. For the first time in cosmic history, a Void Devourer screamed. The sound tore across multiple dimensions, a psychic shriek that shattered the minds of lesser beings. Several Council ship crews went insane just from hearing it, but the humans pressed their attack with renewed ferocity. All ships converge on the pain response, Admiral Chen ordered. Whatever we did, we do it again. Harder. More boarding pods launched from human vessels, each one carrying teams of soldiers who had volunteered for what was essentially a suicide mission. They disappeared into the entity's mass, their communications cutting out as they entered dimensions that human technology could barely comprehend. But then something unprecedented happened. Some of them came back. "This is Boarding Team 7, crackled a transmission from inside the entity. "We found something that might be a command center. It's actually trying to communicate with us." "Communication?" Admiral Chen's voice was sharp. "What's it saying?" "It's begging us to stop, Admiral. This thing is scared." The revelation sent shockwaves through both fleets. The Void Devourers, cosmic horrors that had been considered forces of nature, were actually intelligent, and they could feel fear. "Admiral Chen," Captain Velthera transmitted urgently, "if these entities are sentient, perhaps we can negotiate." "Negative," Admiral Chen cut her off. "This thing has consumed billions of innocent lives. Fear is just the beginning." The human assault intensified. More boarding teams penetrated the entity's defenses, each one carrying weapons designed not just to kill but to terrify. They planted devices that created pain feedback loops, installed viral programs that corrupted the entity's dimensional interface, and engaged in close-quarters combat with manifestations of cosmic horror. The Void Devourer began to retreat. "Impossible," Dr. Veltara whispered from her observation post. "These entities have never retreated from anything." "They've never fought anything before," Admiral Chen replied grimly. "They've only hunted. There's a difference. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Of the 47 human ships that entered the Maelstrom sector, only 23 remained functional. Thousands of human soldiers had died fighting in dimensions that human minds couldn't fully comprehend, and the survivors were changed. "Admiral," Captain Rodriguez reported quietly, "we're getting strange readings from the boarding teams that made it back. Their biosignatures are different." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. "Fighting monsters changes you. That's the price of winning." As the damaged Void Devourer fled into hyperspace, leaving behind the corpses of star systems it had already consumed, the combined fleet regrouped. The Council representatives were in shock. They had just witnessed something impossible: cosmic horrors fleeing in terror from beings they had dismissed as primitive savages. "Admiral Chen," Ambassador Zethkar's voice was barely audible. "What have you done to your own people?" Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display showing the positions of their surviving ships. Many of the human vessels showed signs of impossible modifications, structures that shouldn't exist in normal space, weapon systems that violated fundamental laws of physics, crew members who registered as something other than entirely human. "We did what we had to do," she replied simply. "We became something scarier than the monsters." The galaxy was saved, but the victory had transformed humanity into something the universe had never seen before. As the fleet prepared to pursue the retreating Void Devourers, one question echoed through the minds of every council member. What happens when the monsters you created to save you decide they don't need saving anymore? The galactic core was a place where physics went to die. Massive gravitational forces twisted space and time into impossible configurations around the supermassive black hole at the galaxy's heart. And there, feeding on the fundamental forces that held reality together, waited the largest Void Devourer ever encountered. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, now more machine than ship after the modifications forced by their war against cosmic horrors. Around her, The surviving human fleet hung in space like dark angels, vessels that no longer entirely existed in normal spacetime, crewed by beings who were no longer entirely human. Final approach to the galactic core, reported Captain Rodriguez, his voice carrying harmonics that shouldn't have been possible from a human throat. The changes wrought by fighting interdimensional horrors had affected them all. Sensor readings are indescribable. The entity before them defied every attempt at measurement. It was simultaneously massive and microscopic, ancient and newly born, real and impossible. It had wrapped itself around the galactic core like a parasite, feeding directly on the black hole's energy while preparing to consume the fundamental forces that held the galaxy together. It's not just eating matter and energy anymore. Dr. Yuki Tanaka reported from the science station, her bio-enhanced neural interface allowing her to process data that would have driven a normal human mind insane. It's consuming the underlying structure of space-time itself. If it succeeds, the galaxy won't just die, it will never have existed. The Council fleet, what remained of it, maintained position at the edge of the engagement zone. Their elegant vessels looked fragile and ancient compared to the transformed human warships. Captain Velthera transmitted from the Harmony's wisdom, her voice tight with barely controlled terror. Admiral Chen, our sensors indicate this entity is beyond anything we've previously encountered. Perhaps we should consider evacuation of the remaining inhabited systems. Negative, Admiral Chen cut her off. We didn't come this far to run away at the finish line. She activated the fleet communication system. All human vessels, this is Admiral Chen. Today we end this war. Today we show the universe what happens when you threaten our galaxy. Our galaxy? Ambassador Zethkar's gaseous form flickered with confusion. Admiral, humanity has been part of galactic civilization for less than 6 months. Admiral Chen's modified features showed an expression that no baseline human could have made. Ambassador, the moment you asked for our help, this became our galaxy. We don't do things halfway. The final assault began. The human fleet moved toward the galactic core in a formation that hurt to look at directly. Ships, positioned in patterns that existed in more dimensions than normal space allowed. Their weapons had evolved far beyond anything recognizable, incorporating technology torn from the bodies of defeated void. Devourers and merged with human ingenuity in ways that violated several fundamental laws. The massive entity noticed their approach and began to defend itself. Tendrils of pure destruction lashed out across light years, each one capable of unmaking entire star systems. Reality warped and twisted as the creature's attention focused on the approaching threat. 3 human ships, the UES Savage, the UES Relentless, and the UES Inevitable, were caught in the first wave of the entity's attack. They didn't just explode. They were edited out of existence, along with the space they had occupied and the memories of everyone who had ever known their crews. But the remaining ships pressed forward. Beginning final assault, Admiral Chen announced. All boarding teams prepare for interdimensional insertion. Target the entity's core consciousness. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez said quietly. The boarding teams won't survive this. The entity's core exists in dimensions that human consciousness can't process without complete dissolution. I know, Admiral Chen replied. That's why we're not sending human consciousness. The modified assault teams launched from the human vessels were no longer recognizably human. Months of fighting interdimensional horrors had changed them into something new. Beings that existed partially outside normal reality. Their consciousness expanded beyond the limitations of single-dimensional existence. They were living weapons designed for one purpose: to kill gods. As the boarding teams penetrated the entity's defenses, Admiral Chen made her final decision. She activated a communication channel that reached every human vessel in the fleet. All ships, prepare to initiate the consciousness bomb. Authorization, Chen Alpha Omega 777. Admiral, Dr. Tanaka's voice was strained. The consciousness bomb will destroy every sentient mind within 50 light years.
That includes us.
That includes the entire Council fleet. The Council fleet is already withdrawing to minimum safe distance, Admiral Chen replied. As for us, we knew this was a one-way mission the moment we agreed to save the galaxy. The weapon Admiral Chen was preparing to detonate was humanity's ultimate achievement, a device that weaponized human consciousness itself. It took the species' capacity for violence, creativity, stubbornness, and sheer bloody-minded refusal to give up, and turned those traits into a psychic weapon of unimaginable power. Admiral Chen. Captain Valthera's transmission crackled with static as the Council fleet retreated. Surely there must be another way. There is no other way, Admiral Chen interrupted. This thing feeds on matter, energy, and space-time itself. The only thing it can't digest is pure human stubbornness, and we're about to give it more than it can handle. The consciousness bomb detonated. What happened next existed beyond normal description. The weapon didn't just explode. It infected the fundamental structure of reality with human nature. The Void Devourer, a cosmic entity that had existed for millions of years, suddenly found itself contaminated with human emotions, human irrationality, and most dangerous of all, human creativity. For the first time in its existence, the entity experienced doubt. It felt fear. It questioned its own actions. And in that moment of uncertainty, it made a mistake. It tried to understand what it was feeling. Human consciousness, even weaponized, was too chaotic for the entity to process. Its carefully ordered interdimensional structure began to collapse as it tried to make sense of concepts like humor, love, spite, and the peculiar human tendency to keep fighting long after logic said they should surrender. The entity began to scream again, but this time the sound carried different harmonics, not just pain but confusion, terror, and something that might have been regret. "It's working," Dr. Tanaka reported as her instruments recorded the impossible. "The entity is... It's becoming human. The consciousness bomb is forcing it to experience human nature. The cosmic horror that had consumed countless civilizations was learning what it meant to feel guilt about its actions. It was experiencing empathy for its victims. Most devastating of all, it was developing the uniquely human trait of self-doubt. The entity began to retreat into itself, its vast form collapsing as it became paralyzed by emotions it had never experienced. The feedback loop of human consciousness was more destructive than any weapon. It turned the creature's own intelligence against itself. But the victory came at the ultimate price. "Admiral," Captain Rodriguez's voice was fading as the psychic backlash consumed the human fleet. "We're losing cohesion. The weapon is taking us with it." Admiral Chen nodded, her own consciousness beginning to fragment as the consciousness bomb claimed its creators. "That's acceptable, Captain. Mission accomplished." The explosion of weaponized human nature didn't just defeat the Void Devourer, it fundamentally altered the creature, forcing it back into a dormancy so deep it would sleep for cosmic ages. The other entities, sensing what had happened to their greatest member, fled beyond the galactic rim, choosing exile over facing whatever had defeated their champion. When the psychic shockwaves finally faded, the Council fleet emerged from the edge of the engagement zone to find an empty battlefield. The galactic core was quiet, the black hole spinning peacefully in its ancient dance. The Void Devourers were gone, so were the humans. "Admiral Chen," Captain Valthera transmitted into the void. "Admiral Chen, please respond." There was no answer. The human fleet had vanished completely, taking with them any trace that they had ever existed. Only the quiet galactic core remained, and the strange certainty that something fundamental had changed in the universe. Months later, on a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy, the people of Earth received a message from the Galactic Council. It spoke of gratitude, of membership offered in galactic civilization, of wonders beyond imagination waiting among the stars. But Earth's response was simple and direct. "Thank you, but we're fine on our own." The galaxy had been saved, but the beings who saved it had paid the ultimate price. They had become something beyond human, something that the universe itself couldn't quite remember or understand. They had saved civilization by becoming something civilization couldn't accept. Ambassador Zethkar filed his final report on the incident, though he knew no one would ever believe it. "We asked for Earth's beasts to save us. We never considered that they might save us so thoroughly that we would never see them again. The galaxy was safe, the Void Devourers were gone, and somewhere in the space between dimensions, things that had once been human stood eternal watch, making sure the monsters never returned. Humanity had kept its promise.